Hello everyone, and welcome to my virtual version of Foldspace Origami Studio. In this video, I am going to teach you how to fold this lovely origami butterfly model that was designed by renowned Japanese origami master, Akira Yoshizawa. Yoshizawa is widely recognized as the father of the modern origami movement. A true artist through and through, Yoshizawa brought a level of expressiveness and personality to the models he folded that had never been seen before that time. One could say he had the unique ability to breathe life into his work. As a result, Yoshizawa was perhaps the first origami artist to be featured publicly in a formal artist exhibition, which was held in 1955 in his one-man show at the Stedelijk Museum in Amsterdam. Yoshizawa was also a fervent ambassador of paper folding, dedicated to disseminating the art of origami across Japan and abroad. We also have Yoshizawa to thank for developing the style of illustrating origami instructions that has since become ubiquitous in modern diagramming. There's so much I could talk about regarding Yoshizawa sensei, but I'll just have to save that for another video. Now, on with the lesson. To fold this butterfly, I'm going to use a square sheet of origami paper that has a brown side and a colored side. Now, this is much like traditional origami paper that is typically white and has a color applied to one side of it. So in this case, the paper itself is this brown craft paper, which is really crisp and really nice to fold, albeit a little bit on the thick side, but that makes the model a little bit more sturdy. And then we have the other side with the color that has been applied. And I'm going to start with the colored side facing up. And our first step is going to be a book fold. And to do that, I'm going to take the bottom edge of the square and I'm going to bring it up to meet the top edge. And before I actually make my fold, I'm going to line up the corners and the edges as best as I can, and then I'm going to hold it at the top, kind of in the middle, with one hand. And then I'm going to use my free hand, my folding hand, to slide down the middle, kind of pull the excess slack out of the paper. And once we've started the crease, then we can finish it from the middle, going out to one side, back to the middle, and then out to the other side. And as I mentioned, this paper is a little bit thicker than your traditional origami paper. So one thing I like to use is a tool. Now, in origami and other paper arts like bookmaking, we have these fancy tools called bone folders, or also known as folding bones. But you don't need a fancy folding bone to make a sharp crease, and you could just use a marker and just kind of lay it flat on the table and run it along that creased edge, and that'll give you a nice sharp crease. So I'm going to keep this handy for the rest of the model. And I could probably, here, I'm going to pull this up just a tad. I think it kind of slipped out a little bit. You can always make adjustments to your paper. That's what I tell my students all the time. Okay, so now we've created the famous book fold. And the colored side of the model of the paper is on the inside. Now, I'm going to unfold the book fold, and I'm going to flip it over now to the back side, the natural colored side of the paper. And I'm going to reorient the paper like so, because now what I want to do is take the bottom corner and bring it up to the top corner. So I'm making a new crease where I'm going to fold the square in half, this time into a triangle. But I'm going to use the same exact technique. I'm going to line everything up as best I can. Hold before you fold. And then I'm going to slide down the middle. Oh, just shift it around on me a little bit. Slide it down the middle. And then we can finish the crease by going out to one corner on the side, and then back to the middle, and then to the opposite corner side. Use my creasing tool here. And then if we unfold the paper, we will see that we've created a crease along the diagonal of the square. Now we need to do the same thing with the other diagonal, but first I will reorient the paper. So once again, we can take what is now the bottom corner up to the top corner. So once again, take that bottom corner, raise it up to the top, line it up as best you can, pin it down on the table, and then slide down the middle to get that crease started, and then finish it by going out to one side, back to the middle, and then out to the other side. Now we've just folded the paper in half a total of 3 times. Each of those 3 creases will now work together in tandem to create a collapse. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the model like so. Now this part of the paper, you'll see there are 2 small triangles and then a larger triangle. Now it might be that your 2 small triangles are sticking out to this side. It's okay. It does not matter which side it is sticking out on. But what I am going to do, regardless of what side the 2 small triangles are sticking out, what I'm going to do is hold the big triangle in one hand and then take the small triangle. And look, if I just kind of pull the back down, we use all of those existing creases, and the paper will naturally collapse into this almost 4-pointed star. And if you could even just kind of, if you open up the paper a little bit, you see we have this X, these 2 creases, and it forms what looks kind of like a tent with these 2 sides kind of pushed in. So if we just kind of let the creases do the work and collapse the model, there you have it. It looks like this. And in origami, we call that the water bomb base, because we can use it to make the little blow up water bomb or water balloon, or it's a 3-dimensional cube that is really fun to make. Now I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Here we go. All right. Next step, we're going to take one side corner. And before we go any further, let me just point out, we've got 2 flaps on each side. We've got 2 flaps here on the right, and then 2 flaps here on the left. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the side corner here, but only the top flap. I'm going to take that side corner, and I'm going to bring it up to the tip top of the triangle here. We could think of this as a pyramid. So I'm going to take the side corner, I'm going to bring it up to the tip top of the pyramid, like so. Make my first crease. And then I want to do the exact same thing on the opposite side. So again, just take only one flap, leaving the other flap on the table. And we bring that up to the tip top of the pyramid. We make our crease. And if you want, you can kind of sharpen it with your tool. Next, we are going to take the topmost corner of the triangle or the pyramid, the tip top of the pyramid, and we're going to pick the model up and we're going to flip it downwards. So we're flipping the paper over front to back, but notice that I did it in this motion. I went from the top down to the bottom. So now we have an upside down pyramid, and the 2 flaps that we just folded are underneath the model now. Now for the next step, we're going to have to fold through a bunch of layers of paper, but don't worry, it's not as hard as you think. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to really grab all of the layers here, and maybe just watch for a second before you make the fold yourself, because there's a few things that I want to point out. We're going to take that bottom corner and we're going to raise it up this way. So the model will kind of resemble a boat. And we want this corner, as we fold this up, to stick above the top edge of the boat here by about a centimeter. Now the exact distance does not really matter, but I will caution you against me folding it up too high here. See, that's way too far. What happens is the farther up you fold that point, the more paper you take away from this part of the paper that becomes the wing. So I find, once again, if you just let that corner stick out about a centimeter above the edge of this long side here, or the top edge of the boat, that works pretty well. Another thing that you'll notice, you might see these 2 little triangle shapes that form here and here, and that's good. Okay, so the model's thick, just use your muscles and press that down flat And don't worry about making a super sharp crease, but feel free to use the tool if you'd like. And now that step is complete. Next, we are going to do what is perhaps my all-time favorite origami maneuver. It's called a squash fold. Yes, it's as fun as it sounds. We're going to squash the paper, but we're going to do it in a very controlled way. So next, we're going to take each of these 2 points. Remember, these are the corners that we brought to the tip top of the pyramid. And one at a time, we're going to bring each of those points down, and we're going to let the paper swing along the natural hinge that we've already formed with this crease here. So if I bring that point down and set it flat on the table, what's going to happen is I'm going to get this little area where the paper does not lay flat. The edge kind of raises into the air and then comes back down to this point. And once we get this flat kind of down and on the table, we can now do our squash fold. And it's as easy as just squashing the paper, like so. So you end up with this little triangle flap that is also like a pocket. Now the paper is more or less flat once again. And you probably guessed we're going to do the same thing on the opposite side. So once again, get underneath that flap and just kind of swing it down along the natural hinge. And as it starts to sit flat on the table, we can now guide the paper down and kind of flatten it. And you do want to kind of try to match it up to this side as much as possible. But if it isn't perfectly symmetrical, don't worry about it. It's really okay. But you do have a little bit of control of where that squash fold happens. So maybe just try to ease it into place so that it looks like the other side. And now the butterfly is really starting to take shape. We've got the forewings and the hind wings created. Now we're going to do a few creases to make the butterfly's head. And then we're going to be just about finished, just a few more folds after that. So, okay, now let me change a setting here for just a second. Okay, so to form the head, I'm just going to raise this a little bit closer to the camera so you can see. The head is formed right here, this point that's sticking out above this edge. And what you want to do first for the head is we're going to fold that corner back over the edge. So it follows the edge. Let's give it a nice pinch. Now, I'm going to flip the model over for just a second so we can see this side now. So there's that corner that we just folded down. And next what we want to do is take this point and we're going to swing it back up, but just a little bit. We don't want to unfold what we just did. We want that to stay in place. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pinch this tiny little corner here and just flip it up just a little bit. So now just a tiny bit should be sticking out above the top edge. Whoop. And that creates a pleat. So we folded it down, and then we folded a new crease, sending it right back up again. And that's how you form the head. And the paper is going to want to kind of open up a little bit because of all the layers, but just kind of keep pinching that down flat. And we are going to want to keep this pinched and flat for the next move. So, but let's flip it back over. We're looking at the side again that has the 2 little pockets from our squash fold. And for the next fold, we're going to fold the whole butterfly in half, kind of like we are closing a book. So we're going to make a valley crease that goes right through the middle. And as I said, you want to keep the head kind of closed. And if you just kind of, and in fact, the head is a good place to start because it's so thick. Just start to kind of bend the paper in half. And eventually, you might have to kind of, because of all the layers too, we might have to kind of push that top layer down. It's going to wrinkle a little bit because all those layers are fighting for the same space essentially. But as we start to close the book, you can start to pinch it on the other side. And here we go. I'm going to pinch at the head and through the body. And now we're closing the book. The head flap is here on the outside, and we just folded it down the middle. There we go. Now we just have a couple more folds to make. And let me point something out. If I open up the butterfly a little bit, I'm going to point to a couple places. So we've got the midpoint down here, which is the middle of this flap here. So that's one point. And then notice this point here at the end of the head. And if we draw a line with the bone folder, it goes up to this side, and then of course we have one on the other side, so it makes a V shape. The next two creases we make should more or less fall along those two lines that I just traced. So here's a little trick to get the paper to do that. If you close the model up like we just had it, give it a little pinch, and pinch the body of what would be the body of the butterfly. That's what we are forming right now. And if you don't pinch too far down, pinch kind of close to the edge of the paper, look how I can take the model and kind of push it down onto the table. And if I have a good grip here, and as I push this down, that kind of puts the wings out in the way that I want them to form. But we need to make those two creases that I just outlined. And so this is a good way to get that started. I'm just going to pinch the body, push it down against the table, and keep holding on to it here, okay? Because then, look here, if you flip it over now as I'm pinching on the front side of the butterfly, I'm now going to pinch the wings forward. And what's really cool here is that those crease lines that I just pointed out, they're actually becoming a little more defined now from how I was bending it. Now I haven't completely finished it, but we've got one going here and here. The paper just kind of finds its way to those points. So pinch the body, pinch the wings forward, and you can actually go so far as to essentially kind of flatten it. You don't have to flatten the whole model, but just pinch it along the body so that we make these two new creases. And look here, that's the back side of those two crease lines. And if we look at the other side, there they are once again. And this forms the body of the butterfly. And congratulations, we are now finished. Thank you so much for folding with me today. I really hope you enjoyed making your butterfly, designed by renowned origami master Akira Yoshizawa. Feel free to get in touch, and I'll see you next time. Bye.